Hello everyone, this is Aya from Hinawi Software. Our topic for today is actually unique. We are not going to talk about a specific module and go through its activities. In this video, we are going to see some scenarios, some cases, some questions and inquiries which we have been asked before by our clients and users in general of Hinawi Software. So basically everything that I'm going to cover today in today's video, everything is mainly about the problems which users could face and how to solve them. So basically the misunderstanding of some parts and activities and the resolution and how to solve these types of problems. So first of all, everything starts from the settings, right? That's why before I go into any of the cases or scenarios, I will go to the settings and notice here that I'm logged in from the admin account because I want everything to be displayed in front of us and all settings to be available for us. So let me go to the HRMS settings and then to the general settings. Okay, now in here our main focus for today's video will be about this company because as you see here we have many companies. So we are going to talk about this company. Let me show you one scenario. Okay, for example, let's say that a company, for example, has 2 or more companies in the software, registered on the software. So basically when this happens, you have to make sure that you have individual settings for each one of them, that you fill both settings and the setup is complete for both of them, because in case, for example, you miss one company's setup and you only fill one company, not the other, then you will not be able to use the activities for that company since the setup is not done on that company. So basically, let's say this test company has the settings. You have to make sure that all the boxes here are in red. So that's one case which we should keep in mind, is that how do we know whether the setup is complete or not? You look at the box here, is it gray or red colored? If it's red colored, this means that it's the setup is there. If it's not, this means that the setup is not there. So let's say, for example, let's go here to the file. Let's say we want to see the employees regarding the test company. But in the settings, we have the default company here set on sample. So in this case, let's go back and let's check that the default company here is clicked on sample, but we want to use test company. Let's say that's one scenario. In this case, when we go to the manage employees and then go to the employee list, okay, as you see here in this screen right here, all employees are displayed regarding the sample company, not the test company which we want. Now some users or customers might wonder about this, like they want to view information about a specific company, but here it's showing the other company. In this case, they might think that something is wrong in the system, but no, this is because you have set the default company as sample. So we have to go back here to setup modules and then to HRMS settings, and in the default company, we have to choose the test company. When we click on test company and go back to the list, the employee list, it will display employees regarding the test company. As you can see here, test company is now displayed. So basically that's one case which happens from time to time. Another scenario which we can face from time to time also is through the file menu, setup modules, and then through the HRMS settings, general settings. We are going to select this company, which is test company, and we will see here that in the basic salary and allowance, we have so many items and allowances other than the basic salary. And for example, what if we want to type in an amount for student allowance, and this student allowance is not set up yet? When you click on it and this window appears for you, it means that it's not set up yet. It needs to be saved and closed from here, and then you need to set up the allowance. So basically, when we go here to set salary and benefits, and then create a single salary, and then select here any employee we want, notice here that the student allowance is not one of them. Only these items are displayed here. And you have to make sure that the amount you enter here does not exceed the maximum from here and the minimum there. So for example, if we enter a specific amount here and it exceeds the number which is written here, or it's less than the minimum which is here, this will not be possible. So you have to make sure that it's fine. Also, another thing which we receive is the currency field here. The currency can be changed, and you don't have to choose only between these three currencies displayed here. So basically, also another inquiry we receive is, what if we want to add more currencies? In this case, all you have to do is go to the list, which includes list of everything we have in the system, and then go to the currency list and add more currencies. So that's another thing which we face. Also from here, we will have other benefits, allowances, HRMS activities. Let me talk a little bit about what if we want to add a new department. Another thing we face is from the company setup. When we go to the department setup, sometimes users want to add a specific department and then link that position, link like several positions to that department. But the question is, what if the department you want is not here in the list? What if the department is something other than this in the list? Because this seems like it's fixed, right? It seems like a fixed list of departments. So in this case, you don't go to the department setup. Department setup is only for linking. It's not for creating. Creating is from the list, and then you go to the general list, and from there you go to departments, and then you add a new department. That is the first step. Afterwards, you can link positions to departments which are already created based on the general list. So that is another scenario which could happen. Let me talk a little bit about the HRMS activities, because we receive so many questions on those. Because basically, whatever you do here in the menu reads from the settings displayed here. So let's say, for example, I want to add more items to leaves, more leave types. These are not fixed. I have made an entire video where I explain that you can add more types of leaves, and same thing as the basic salary, you have to make sure that the setup is complete, because if it's not, you will not be able to create a leave type. Let's say, for example, we want to create a leave, and let's select one employee, and let's select, for example, annual leave. Notice here that the leave is allowed for this employee is after 2. Now, please check setup. Now, when we receive this message, when you want to create a leave, and you receive this message of explanation telling you that you have to check the setup and leave is allowed after 2, what this means is that you basically go to the leave setup, you go to the same type of leave which we just saw, and then from here we will see that we have wrote here that the minimum work period is 2 months. So the employee basically must work at least 2 months until we start being able to create leaves, especially the annual leaves for this employee. So here we, for example, we will set this minimum work period as 0 months, and then we will save and close this. and we will go back to leaves, and from here we can create the leave. We will choose the employee, look, now the message is not appearing anymore. So basically it is possible to create a leave, but now the balance is 0, because that's another thing. Also, you have to make sure that of course you are exceeding now the minimum work period, which is now 0 months instead of 2 months, but you also must check the balance, because balance increases by time. And if we want to check the balance, we can go back here and for example, let's say in 2027 March 10, calculate. Look here, it will show you the balance according to the setup, because setup is done in order to have balance and to start receiving and counting the balance. Let's say, for example, we want to choose here let's say leave without pay. Okay, now same thing applies here, that leave is allowed for this employee after 0.5. Please check the setup. That's another case and scenario we receive. So we will go back here to the HRMS settings, general settings, and then we will go to the HRMS activities setup, and we will go to leave without pay, and then we can choose here that instead of 6 it's 0 months, and also we will make sure that all minimum work period, for example, is 0. And now we can save successfully. We will go back now to leaves, create a new leave, and then we will select this employee again, and we will choose the same type of leave. Notice here that we now can create a leave for this employee, but notice here also another scenario or a question we receive is the payment type. Why is the payment type grayed out? Basically it will read based on the type of leave. So if you have leave without payment set here and selected, then there is no payment type for it. However, if you want, for example, to choose another type of leave like sick leave, let's choose another type of leave such as the annual leave. Now after you have selected a leave which allows different payment types, you can here now select whether it's through salary sheet, pay now, or through updating the ledger. So as you see here, payment type will be grayed out or not grayed out based on the type of leave. So it doesn't mean when we choose a specific type and it's grayed out, it doesn't mean that there's a mistake or an error in the software. It only means that you have to select a suitable type to start like creating or choosing their payment type. So that's also another thing. And also, let's say, for example, from here we can see the unpaid salaries, and that's very useful because you can from here know without going to the salary sheet. So that's another thing to check. Also, one more thing that you should always keep in mind is the activities, like HRMS activities. You have to make sure that you follow the workflow, of course. Like that's the main rule in the HRMS activities, is that you have to follow the workflow of creating, editing, approving, returning. Sometimes it's always like it must be followed. So let's say, for example, we want to go here through the leaves activity. What if we want to approve a leave, and we go here to the menu and we click on view? It says that searching is complete and the created leaves is not found. So basically some users might say that why isn't it here in the approved leave window? Well, you have to make sure that it's created first. Like you cannot skip a step and go to the approved leave. You have to go to the create leave and make sure you fill this successfully, and always make sure that you save and close. You don't click on close immediately, because sometimes if you click on close, and you might think that it's saved, so basically you might think there's an error in the software, but you have to always click save and close, and then you will be able to view that leave in the approve leave menu here. Let's say, for example, also we want to create an absence. Same thing applies here. You have to make sure it's created before you click on approve. Let me show you a scenario, for example, in which we want to choose an employee for absence. So some might say, why am I having 2 employees here but not the third one? I want to create an absence for the third employee, but it's not here in the list. So they might think that the system disabled that employee for some reason. And that is actually not correct, because the system did not disable anything. The system only displays here the HR employees. So the reason why the third employee is not showing here is because it's a timesheet employee. And for timesheet employees, you create their absences from the timesheet form itself, not from the HR form of the absence. So that's one thing we should keep in mind, is that you always have to make sure that creating absence for HR is from here, and creating absence for timesheet is from the timesheet form. And I have covered an entire video about the absence and the leaves and the differences between them. Also, when we click here and select a specific HR employee, we can choose here the type, whether it's in days or hours, and we can select here the excuse form. Like, we can fill this as yes, either yes or no. And this will actually read from the setup. So you always have to make sure that the absence setup is complete, because if it's not, you will not be able to create the absence form in the first place. So always make sure that the setup of the absence is done precisely. So yes, from here we can check that the absence setup is complete. Same thing applies to loans. You have to check here. Those are the different scenarios I have covered in the loan video. Basically, when an employee is on leave, for example, we can check this. It will not allow us to create a loan. Those types of cases and scenarios are covered in the loan setup regarding the loan. Let me talk about another thing. So basically, in here, when we stop the salary for one employee, okay, so for example, let's say this employee, and then we want to, for any reason, now data is saved successfully and the employee will become inactive. What if for any reason the user wants to create a leave for that employee later on and goes to the create leave? Now, as you see here, that third employee is not appearing in the list anymore. Some users might think there's an error, there's a problem, there's an issue in the software. Why isn't it displaying that employee? Basically, when the employee stops his or her salary, they will not be displayed in the system. They will not be displayed in anywhere in the system, because they are inactive, and inactive employees mean that they are not there in the system anymore to have their activities created. They are there only as inactive. So basically they're not deleted, but their status is inactive. So that's why you cannot create any activities until you release them back. So that's another scenario which we have. For example, let me say another scenario is creating a salary sheet for timesheet employees when you don't have the timesheet created. So that is another scenario we have in creating the salary sheet for timesheet. Let's say, for example, if we want to filter employees and choose this employee and click on OK. So as you see here, some entries are missing and you cannot create salary sheet even if the total employees is 1. So you cannot create salary sheet until you create that timesheet form first. Let's say we want another month, and let's filter those employees and select this employee and click on OK. Same thing applies here. The missing entries are this employee. You cannot view this employee in the system of salary sheet and in this form because timesheet is not created yet. When you see here in created timesheet, only January is created. So therefore, when we click on January, that employee's information will now appear since the timesheet form is created. So January now can be created regarding the salary sheet. So that's another scenario also which can happen. Also, another scenario is regarding the payment. Sometimes the employees are set to be paid, their salary sheet to be paid as SIF or WPS method. But here we go to create and pay non-WPS. So when we open this window, the employee name will not appear because that employee is set to be paid from here, from the pay WPS. How do we check that? Basically from set salary and benefits, and then we go here and we choose a specific employee. And now as you see here, we have this payment mode right here. So in case we click on bank transfer, we can check this checkbox, small checkbox, where we check whether this employee's payment will be paid through SIF, which is the same meaning as WPS, the wage protection system. So this checkbox will decide whether the employee name will appear here or there. So when you don't see an employee's name here, it doesn't mean there's a problem in the software or there's an issue. It only means that check the other WPS, the non-WPS payment of salary sheet, and you will definitely find it there, either this or this regarding HR, and this or this regarding timesheet. So WPS or non-WPS are split or is split into HR employees and timesheet employees. So that's a very important case which should be kept in mind always. Also, regarding assigning employees to shifts, as you see here, we have only A and B shifts. So another scenario we receive is that what if we want to add more shifts, just like projects from here, projects and lists? Because in projects and locations, we can easily create here a new project. You can from here select the project code, the project name, and it will instantly be appearing here in the list as a column, an entire column. But in the shift window, there isn't any create here. It's only saving, clearing, or printing. You can't create any shift from here. So what if we want to add another shift other than A or B? We don't want A or B. We want C, for example. So this does not mean there's a problem or an issue in the software regarding creating of shifts or that it's not available. It only means that it's created from a different place. It means that you must go to the File menu, Setup Modules, HRMS Settings, and then go to General Settings, and then you choose the company which you want, and from Timesheet Policy, here you can create any new shift. As you see here, the existing shifts will be displayed, A and B, and you can add any new shift from here, and then set that shift's timings and days and holidays also. So that is another scenario also which we receive. That is regarding the payment, regarding the timesheet payroll, the HR payroll, also regarding timesheet, regarding their projects and the shifts of employees, and also regarding transferring among locations or projects. You can transfer among locations or projects. But another scenario which we receive in this matter is that after transferring, so let me say we want to transfer for this employee, there isn't any transferring yet. So what if we want to select project 1 for this employee and then saving? Data is saved successfully. But now, in order for this to take action, in order for this to start considering that project or that location for the employee, you must approve the transfer. As long as the transfer is not approved, it will not take action. So basically, you have to always check that it's approved based on the user access list. And also, one more thing, sometimes when you go to the file menu, set up modules, and then HRMS settings, sometimes this general settings will not be displayed in front of us. So basically, when it's not displayed in front of us, it does not mean that it's not there in the system or that there's an error. It only means that you must log in from the admin account in order to open the general settings. So even if you have the highest permissions in any other user, you must check from the admin account, and you must log in from the admin account to enter the settings, since it's a very, very sensitive place and it's not available for other users. So that's one more thing. Also, you always have to make sure that QuickBooks is opened and displayed below in order for the processes, transactions in Hinawi Software to go smoothly, since they are integrated with each other. So that is one more thing. Sometimes also we want to create a loan without having a salary for a specific employee. So that is another case or scenario which can easily be solved. When you want to create a loan and there is no salary, you must go to manage employees first and then set the salary from here in order to create a loan. And this is a very common question we receive, because sometimes users are not aware of the fact that setting the salary is a prerequisite. It's a condition which must be successfully saved or met before you create a loan. So that's another thing also you have to keep in mind. Also, transferring among companies, among departments, and among positions is possible, but same thing here as such. Just like the locations and projects, you have to approve the transfer. And we have covered the active or inactive employees. You have to always make sure whether employees are active or not in order to be able to create activities. And now, regarding the delete employees, many users ask us about the difference between deleting employees and the difference between end of service or stopping the salary or any of those procedures. So basically, the main difference is that deleting of employees basically is mainly consisting about employees who have no activities yet, such as leaves, absences. Like, the only thing they have is their data created, their information regarding being employees in the system, registered on the system. So then you can delete, for any reason, delete an employee. But if that employee has activities, if that employee has leaves, absences, loans, then there are different methods and procedures to deal with that employee when it's no longer, when he or she is no longer in that company. So when we want to delete this employee, you see here transaction exists for the employee. We cannot delete since there are activities and transactions. Therefore, we have to deal with the situation using end of service or other procedures and activities other than that. And also, we have to make sure that if we want to follow the recruitment process in order to create employees, you don't have to only create the activities and then that's it. You have to make sure you transfer candidate to employees in order for that candidate to be moved to the employee list. So don't expect to go through all these processes and then expect that this employee will just suddenly jump, this candidate will suddenly jump to the list. No, you have to also transfer that candidate to employees. And one more thing also, this is a very important case, is that after you create a salary sheet and then you approve that salary sheet, there isn't any option for editing after approval of salary sheet. So you have to always keep in mind that after approval there is no deleting or editing. It's there, it's fixed. We have delete created salary sheet. However, when you want to delete a created but not approved salary sheet. And finally, let me talk about the payment of activities. From here, you can pay the different types of activities. For example, leaves, loans, air ticket, training, and everything. But keep in mind that payment of loan is different than payment of increased paid loan. So sometimes when we increase the loan, we can't go here to the pay loan. It will be empty. You will not be able to pay loan for an increased paid loan. Each one has its own place and its own process from here. So you always have to make sure that the correct payment of mode option is selected. Same thing applies to leave. When you want to pay a leave, HR employees is different than timesheet employees, and each one is in a different window, different location basically. And you always have to make sure that you receive from employees in the special cases because sometimes, for example, we decrease the loan. So when you decrease the loan, you don't go to pay decreased loan. You have to go through another method, which is updating to QuickBooks, and then go to HRMS update, and from here you will post the decreased loan. So you have to always keep in mind that increased loan is payment of activities and decreased loan is update to QuickBooks, because if you mix those up, it will not be there in the list. The increased loan or decreased loan has to be and must be selected from the accurate and correct window. So basically that's how it is, and that's how it's located. And finally, we have more information in each window under each menu, and make sure you watch that. Make sure you read those PDFs, Excel sheets, and all related information to understand more in depth about each menu basically and how it works. That's it for today's video. I hope it was clear and that I delivered the points accurately and precisely. Please don't forget to like this video, share it with everyone interested, and watch our other videos and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.